Today I'm going to be talking about the secret thoughts that cause OCD that you may have never heard of or may not even recognize that you're having. Hi everybody. In today's video we're going to be talking about OCD and some of the thoughts behind OCD that drive OCD. Now, the thing is, OCD can be a really scary condition associated with lots of out of control, upsetting, intrusive thoughts. And for people with OCD, these obsessive thoughts can be at the forefront of their mind all the time. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the secret thoughts that people with OCD may not even know that they're having. And it's these secret thoughts that are really the thoughts that are driving OCD. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about thinking in OCD. Now, in a previous video, I discussed a behavioral model of OCD, sort of the typical behavioral model that really forms the basis for understanding the rationale behind exposure and response prevention treatment for OCD. And in brief, the model starts with some sort of trigger situation. So like, I feel a bump while I'm driving. And then I get the intrusive thought, like something like, did I just hit somebody with my car? And this intrusive thought can then lead to high levels of anxiety or distress. I feel really anxious about the thought that I just hit somebody with my car. And so I have this urge to neutralize and to engage in some sort of compulsive behavior or some sort of compulsion to neutralize my anxiety or distress. So I may drive around the block a few times to check to see if there's somebody who was injured in the area where I was driving by. And so this compulsion behavior, this neutralization, reduces my anxiety in the short term, but ultimately feeds back and fuels the intrusive thought in the long term, thereby perpetuating OCD. If you want to learn more about the behavioral model of OCD, I'll leave a link up above, and then you can sort of check out that video. Now, the thing about the behavioral model of OCD is that it's missing one key component. And what's missing is an understanding that everybody gets these types of intrusive thoughts. Everybody has these kind of random, intrusive types of thoughts that come up, occasionally from time to time. And these intrusive thoughts tend to take the form of sort of three main categories of thinking. And these are the main categories that really drive some OCD types of thoughts and behaviors. And the categories tend to relate to harm, so harm coming to myself or harm coming to other people, blasphemous or religious types of thoughts, or thoughts around sexual deviance. Now, the thing is, everyone gets these types of thoughts. Everyone has these types of kind of intrusive, random types of thoughts that come from out of the blue. And so the thing is, if it was just the thought that was triggering the anxiety and the distress, then everybody would have OCD. So there's part of the puzzle that's missing in this pure behavioral model of OCD. And the part of the puzzle that's missing is something we call the appraisal. And the appraisal is the meaning that you give to the intrusive thought. So in other words, what does it mean that you have the thought? What do these thoughts actually mean? So I'll give you an example that I like to share with my clients. It was It was a number of years ago when my eldest daughter was just an infant. She was probably about 6 or 7 months old. And I was carrying her, and I was walking down the stairs with her. And as I was walking down the stairs, I had this intrusive thought and almost like an intrusive urge to throw her down the stairs. And the thing was, when I had that thought and that urge, the first thing that came to my mind was, ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good thought. That's one that I can share with my clients. So that was the appraisal. That was the way I interpreted that thought was, hey, this is something that is a really useful example that I'll be able to share with my clients with OCD. Now, the thing is, I'm not sort of a typical person having these types of thoughts. I'm a psychologist who works with people with OCD, so of course I'm going to probably interpret that situation a little bit differently. But think about someone else in that exact same situation. What might be their appraisal of walking down the stairs with their infant child and having the thought or the urge to throw that child down the stairs? Well, they could think, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. Is it possible that I could do something like that to hurt my child? I'm dangerous to my child. I shouldn't be left alone with them. So you can see that having this type of intrusive thought can lead to all sorts of appraisals or other thoughts about the meaning of that thought that then is likely to cause a lot of anxiety or distress. So the thing is, the appraisal is key to whether or not a person experiences distress in a situation like that. So in my case, I didn't experience any distress because I appraised it as a really good real-life example that I can share with my clients. In the case of the other person, they interpreted it as, this is horrible, this is dangerous, I'm a terrible parent, I'm a risk to the safety of my child. Now the thing is, for a lot of people, they aren't aware of these appraisals. We typically don't tend to be aware of our thinking and our interpretation of our thoughts. And so we don't really understand what's going on in OCD and how the way I'm interpreting my thoughts determines how scary my thoughts are. And so these appraisals tend to be kind of these secret thoughts that are hanging out in the background that are really driving the OCD engine without us even being aware that they're there. And so there tend to be 4 main sort of categories of appraisals that tend to happen in OCD, that tend to drive OCD. The first is overimportance of thoughts. And the idea here is that because I have the thought, it must mean something. Just the fact that I'm having a thought means it's important or there's some meaning behind it. So if I have a thought about having an affair with someone, it just sort of pops into my head, well, that must mean that I actually do want to cheat on my wife. Or that must mean that I'm not happy in my relationship. Additionally, people can sort of interpret the frequency of thoughts as being important. So if I have a thought a lot, it must mean something more than if I have a thought just once in a while. Another way this overimportance of thoughts can take hold is through something we call thought-action fusion. And thought-action fusion is this notion that just having the thought makes it more likely that the thing I'm thinking about will happen. Or having the thought is equivalent to engaging in the behavior. So if I have an intrusive thought about cheating on my spouse, that's the same thing as actually cheating on my spouse. So there's this equivalency between the thought and the behavior. Now, The second category of appraisals relates to overestimations of danger. I tend to overestimate the likelihood that something bad might happen. Now, this is not unique to OCD. This is actually very common in all of the anxiety disorders. This tendency to think that unlikely or rare events are much more likely to happen than they actually are. So, overestimating danger and threat in the world. Now, a third category of appraisals relates to an inflated sense of responsibility. This is what I refer to as the Superman syndrome. This notion that I'm responsible for the safety and well-being of people around me, that I have to protect other people, and that if something bad were to happen, it would be my fault because I'm responsible for them. So it's this this Superman notion that it's my responsibility to keep everyone safe, and if anything bad happens, it was because I wasn't doing my job well enough. And finally, the fourth sort of category of these appraisals, these negative appraisals in OCD, relates to a need for certainty and control over my thoughts and my thinking. In other words, I need to be in control of all of my thoughts all the time. And so the assumption here is that I should be able to control every thought that occurs in my head. Now, if you have this appraisal, you can probably understand how this might be a problem in OCD. That I have these intrusive thoughts that seem to come out of the blue that I can't control. And so if I'm supposed to be able to control my thoughts, but I can't control my thoughts, then there must be something wrong. There must be something wrong with me. There's something dangerous here because I'm not able to control thoughts I should be able to control. So those are the four common appraisals that occur in OCD. Overimportance of thoughts, overestimations of danger, inflated sense of responsibility, and a need for certainty and control over my thoughts. Now, in future videos, I'm going to talk about each of these types of appraisals in more detail and how to identify and challenge these faulty appraisals as a way of disrupting that OCD cycle. So just like with the example of me having the thought of throwing my daughter down the stairs, it didn't spiral into anything. I didn't experience any anxiety or distress, not because I didn't have the thought, but because I interpreted the thought in a different way, in a way that wasn't scary, in a way that wasn't dangerous or threatening. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's a bit of a different way of thinking about OCD, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas about this. So please leave me some comments in the comments section down below. If you're enjoying my videos and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So that's all for today's video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.